weather. All right, so this has kind of become a tradition. I did my first annual weather forecast along Santa's route a few months ago at Christmas. We're doing it yet again for this Easter, and we'll just continue this down the road as we get into more streams. Excuse me. So, what is my forecast along EB's trip? Well, I've actually added more locations this time around compared to Christmas, so stay tuned. His first stop will be London Kiribati at roughly, I will say that we don't probably have quite the accuracy of the ETA as we did at Christmas, because I had a lot of different information that allowed me to get a better ETA, and I've been with NORAD for so long, I really just knew it was kind of engraved into my brain that I just kind of had a good estimation. But since this tracker, we've only been using it for a few years, I just went back on past archives, like last year's Easter Bunny tracker that we have the stream last year that's archived on our channel. I literally just took the estimated time on arrival from last Easter and just did it. So be aware that these ETAs could be, a difference of 15 to maybe 30 minutes than what they'll actually be. Just be aware of that. But these are specifically from last year's, like what happened last year. So although this could be slightly different, I think it will give you a general good idea. So at around 11:05 p.m. local time, out towards London Kiribati will be the Easter Bunny's first stop, which is just about 5 minutes after Easter Bunny leaves Easter Island. I'm expecting around that time, 11:05, to see some scattered thunderstorms, mostly cloudy skies, temperatures into the mid to the upper 70s to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 26 degrees Celsius. Getting over to Auckland, New Zealand, probably a quarter to 11 again, maybe 15 to 30 minutes either direction. This is just a purely estimate, give or take. Expecting nothing but clear skies out that way, lots of stars out, when temperatures will be into the mid to the upper 50s to about 60 Fahrenheit, which will be roughly 14 degrees Celsius. McMurdo Station, Antarctica, should be close to around 11 o'clock local time, give or take, with scattered snow showers, overcast skies, but man, temperatures 0 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. That is absolutely crazy for even this time of year. That's roughly negative 16 Celsius. Sydney, Australia, probably getting there, maybe close to a quarter after 10 or so, give or take. Mostly clear, a quarter after 11, give or take. Mostly clear skies, temperatures into the mid to the upper 60s to about 70 Fahrenheit over there, roughly 20 degrees Celsius. Out towards Seoul, South Korea, where we are expecting Easter Bunny to get there maybe just after 10 o'clock, maybe a little close to 10:30, somewhere around there. I got 10:15 p.m. on here with clear skies, low to mid 40s in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 6 degrees Celsius. Beijing, China, getting close to 10 o'clock, possibly a quarter to about that, give or take. Mostly clear skies, mid to the upper 50s to about 60 degrees at that time, with temperature about 14 degrees Celsius. Getting into Singapore, maybe closer to 11 local time, partly cloudy skies, although there could be a few storms out that way. Although I'm not expecting anything widespread, it's completely possible that some thunder and lightning works its way in. We are expecting low to mid 80s for temperatures at that time. Wow, that is probably one of the warmest locations that the Easter Bunny will be delivering to across the world. Low to mid 80s in Fahrenheit. That's 28 degrees roughly in Celsius. Dubai in the UAE, we're talking just after 9:30-ish local time. He should arrive there, which is honestly one of if not the earliest places across the world that he will be delivering to in terms of how early he will get there. Partly cloudy skies, dry, mid to the upper 70s to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 26 degrees Celsius. Cooler in Athens, Greece, possibly closer to 11:30 or maybe a little bit later out that way. Local time, mostly clear, mid to the upper 50s to about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 14 degrees Celsius. Rome, Italy, maybe a quarter to 11 o'clock or so, give or take. Partly cloudy skies, low to mid 60s for temperatures in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 17 degrees Celsius. Berlin, Germany, we're talking after 11. It could even be closer to 11:30 at this point. Clear skies, mid to the upper 50s to about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly 14 degrees Celsius. Getting into Madrid, Spain, I think the Easter Bunny will be arriving there after midnight local time, maybe around 12:10, 12:15. We'll see if he gets there a little bit later, but I think that's a fairly good estimate at this point. Light rain, completely cloudy skies, low to mid 40s for those temperatures in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 6 degrees Celsius. And here you go. Plymouth, England. However, I say that. I don't want to butcher these names. Again, luckily there is a pronunciation feature this year on Track Easter Bunny CC, which is great. ETA, after midnight, we're talking maybe 12, 10 a.m., maybe we see a little bit later, but I think a quarter after midnight is a pretty good bet. Maybe a little bit earlier, but we'll see. Mostly cloudy skies, rain showers around, mid to the upper 40s to about 50 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 9 degrees Celsius. It's actually a bit different, like southwestern England over here, than London. London, no rain expected. In fact, only a few clouds. Otherwise, we're just fairly clear outside. Low to mid 40s for temperatures, and maybe the Easter Bunny gets there possibly around a quarter after midnight local time. I mean, roughly just a few minutes after Plymouth. Mostly clear skies, low to mid 40s for those temperatures, roughly 6 degrees Celsius. Into Dublin, Ireland, it's possible they're kind of just hanging off the system that kind of goes through Plymouth, meaning I don't expect a lot of rain over there, but they have a better chance to see just a few raindrops compared to London, where they have no chance. So it's possible Dublin sees a few raindrops. With, ETA, I mean, last year was as around 12:25 in the morning. But like I said, maybe give or take 15 to 30 minutes for this. But assuming that the route is fairly similar, maybe close to a half past midnight out that way. Isolated drizzle, mostly cloudy, mid to the upper 40s to about 50 Fahrenheit. Yeah, no rain, surprisingly, in London. But like I said, if you're a bit more southwest, you'll definitely notice some of that rain. Roughly 9 degrees Celsius at the time the Easter Bunny rides there in Dublin. Getting into eastern Greenland, about the same temperature as McMurdo Station in Antarctica. We're talking 0 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly negative 16 Celsius. Maybe a quarter to 11 p.m. ish, somewhere around there, give or take. We could see that first stop in Greenland. That would be eastern Greenland. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We're talking, maybe 20 minutes after 10, give or take. At least what happened last year should be somewhat similar this year. Partly cloudy skies, so although there will be some clouds around, overall not a whole lot, but dry, low to mid 70s for temperatures, which is really nice for, after 10 p.m. at night, roughly 23 degrees Celsius. First stop in the U.S., Miami, Florida. Last year he got it there around 11:10 local time, so again, there's your rough estimate, 15 to 30 minute either way, but assuming that's around the same this year, that's when you could start to see the Easter Bunny moving into that region. Mostly clear skies, also pretty nice outside, mid to the upper 60s to about 70 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 20 degrees Celsius. Washington, D.C., we're talking 11:25 p.m. So, assuming that even if these times are a little bit off either way, it's still a pretty good bet that Easter Bunny should arrive in Washington, D.C. roughly 15 minutes after he hits Miami, but there could be a little bit more cloud cover out towards Washington, D.C., though. And colder, low to mid to the upper 50s, about 60 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 14 Celsius. Baltimore, Maryland, we're talking maybe closer to 11:30 p.m. out that way, which is just minutes after Washington, D.C. There could be a weak system kind of going through the northeastern part of the country. So although Baltimore has a chance to see a few raindrops at this point when the Easter Bunny moves in, it really does not look all that wet. A lot of the region may just stay dry, but don't be surprised if you see a few raindrops. Partly cloudy otherwise, low to mid 50s Fahrenheit, which is roughly 12 degrees Celsius. Getting into New York City, New York, again, maybe this is only 5 minutes after Baltimore, Maryland. So like I said, even if this is a little bit different in terms of if it's not exactly 11:35, that's still a fairly good guess, and regardless, it should still be, 1 or 2 stops right after Baltimore. So pretty quickly after that, we'll get into New York City, mostly cloudy, and that's your best chance to see actually some steady rain at that point, likely, although it should be light, whatever falls. Low to mid 40s for those temperatures in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 6 degrees Celsius. Hartford, Connecticut, we are talking 11:40 p.m. possibly is my best guess. So that's just 5 minutes after New York City, potentially. We're talking not as wet as New York, but still some scattered showers around, otherwise partly cloudy skies, but some of you could luck out and be dry. Into the upper 40s to about 50 for Fahrenheit, roughly 9 degrees Celsius. Into Montreal, Quebec, it might be one of the first stops in, no, that might not be right, at least in mainland Canada, though. That's completely possible. I think Easter Bunny hits parts of very eastern coast of Canada before this, but these are one of the first major stops. Midnight, I think, give or take, out that way. Just notice as we progress throughout this forecast and as we progress throughout the Easter Bunny's trip, overall that ETA is shifting later and later as that as he moves with the time zones. Partly cloudy skies around midnight, low to mid 30s in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 0 degrees Celsius. In Buffalo, New York, maybe around 10 minutes later. Right now I have an estimation, at least based off of last year, right around 12:10 a.m. It's possible Buffalo gets a few raindrops or snowflakes, but overall lots of dry time, mostly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 30s to low 40s. So that's why I have the potential for a few snowflakes mixing in, just because it could be cold enough to where you see a bit of a mix if you get caught in with a little bit of that precipitation. Otherwise, Nathan says that's the biggest city to me. Awesome. I wanted to add more of these towns so more of you kind of know what the weather is going to be like and when the Easter Bunny could get there. Although Buffalo, that area still could luck out. You could stay completely dry. Just don't be surprised if you have a slight chance for a few raindrops or flurries. Again, that's roughly 3 degrees Celsius. Detroit, Michigan, maybe 5 minutes after Buffalo. My best guess is 12:15 based on last year's route, last year's trip. What happened? 12:15 a.m. roughly, give or take. A lot of dry time is still the trend, but it's possible you see a few raindrops. And even if you manage to stay dry, there's parts of the region that could be impacted by a few scattered showers. And if that's the case, that would stay rain, though, because that would be low to mid 40s in Fahrenheit, which is roughly 6 degrees Celsius. Indianapolis, Indiana, again, maybe 5 minutes after Detroit. It's getting closer to the half past 12 mark at this point. Mostly clear skies, low to mid 50s for Fahrenheit, roughly 12 degrees Celsius. Cincinnati, Ohio, we're talking maybe, again, these places are kind of close together in the Easter Bunny's route. Maybe another 5 minutes after Indianapolis. At this point, we're much closer to 12:30 at night, and possibly a little bit later, or maybe even a little bit earlier, depending on what the Easter Bunny decides to do this year. But overall, lots of dry time. Same trend for Cincinnati, Ohio. Although doesn't look like as much cloud cover. Definitely more breaks in that cloud cover for sure. So you should be able to see some stars out that way. Overall, not a lot of clouds, but like I said, if you get caught in thicker cloud cover briefly, maybe you see a few raindrops. Otherwise, a lot of the region remains dry, mid to the upper 50s to 60 degrees at that point in Fahrenheit, roughly 14 degrees Celsius. San Jose, Costa Rica, should be getting around there around 10 p.m., give or take, local time. Mostly clear skies, low to mid 60s for those highs in Fahrenheit, roughly 17 degrees Celsius. New Orleans, Louisiana, maybe getting around there, 15 past midnight, give or take, partly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 60s to about 70 degrees. Pretty nice in Fahrenheit. That's roughly 20 degrees in Celsius. St. Louis, Missouri, getting over there by 12, maybe half past 12 at that point. Local time is my best guess, give or take. Mostly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 50s to about 16 Fahrenheit, roughly 14 degrees Celsius. Staying dry, but a lot of cloud cover. Chicago, Illinois, at this point, maybe a quarter to one. Again, these times are really starting to push back as we progress throughout the entire region. So 12:40 is what happened last year. Could be similar. Mostly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 30s to about 40 at that time, but remaining dry, roughly 3 degrees Celsius. Houston, Texas. Again, now we're even later, half past 1 at the very least. Maybe we even see a little bit later than that. There would definitely be a decent amount of cloud breaks in the mix, but similar to a location a few locations back. If you get caught in slightly thicker cloud cover, that could be the chance for a few raindrops in the mix, but overall lots of dry time. Most of you should stay dry. Mid to the upper 60s to about 70 Fahrenheit, roughly 20 degrees Celsius. Mexico City, Mexico. Maybe a quarter to one is my best guess. Mostly clear skies. Mid to the upper 50s to about 60 in Fahrenheit, roughly 14 degrees Celsius. Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is actually kind of a tough one. According to track.easterbunny.cc, last year he arrived there roughly around 1:05 local time. Although, we actually have a member who lives in the area of New Mexico, and he has informed me, and we've been on the stream together for years now, and every single time it's like clockwork. The tracker loves to get to New Mexico, but then skips Jeremiah's house. That's who lives in New Mexico, and then comes back again the second time. So, but the difference is the tracker, at least this does show it at Christmas with NORAD, coming back the second time. But this particular tracker, at least last year, did not have him loop around the second time, even though that's what Jeremiah actually experienced. So although based on Track Easter Bunny CC, it may say that he gets there around 1:05, give or take, but you know, if this continues to happen like it does each year, maybe it's closer to 1:30. So that one is a little bit more uncertain, but I can tell you lots of clear conditions at that point. Dry as well, low to mid 50s for Fahrenheit, around 12 degrees Celsius. Colorado Springs, Colorado, 1:10 a.m. give or take. Lots of dry time, some breaks in that cloud cover, but it's possible, especially into those higher elevations, that we could see a few snowflakes. I wouldn't necessarily expect the chance for widespread snow accumulations, absolutely not, but do a few of you look out, maybe in the Colorado Springs metro area in those higher elevations with a dusting of snow when the Easter Bunny gets there? Maybe, but I don't expect that to be the case for a lot of you. Generally, though, temperatures around freezing. Boise, Idaho, which is actually a few hours away from me, but the Easter Bunny tracker actually does this differently than NORAD. NORAD, even though Boise is an hour ahead of me, and it's 3 hours from my location, but it's an hour ahead of me, NORAD goes to Boise on the way to my place in Oregon within just minutes. But the track Easter Bunny CC actually tracks the Easter Bunny over Boise, Idaho, like an hour before he gets here, and that also seems to be fairly accurate. That seems to be what the Easter Bunny actually does. So that's a big difference between Santa and the Easter Bunny. So, and now that I know that, I'm actually going to stay on the stream for longer. Usually I go off around Boise, but now that I know that, now that I have proof of that, now that I have an estimation, it's very easy for me to stay on like an extra 30-45 minutes than I usually do. Similar to what I do for NORAD at Christmas, or Santa at Christmas, so that will be very awesome that I can be on the stream a little bit longer. But yeah, just know that even though this is one of the closest places to me on the map, it technically is not. It's still like an hour out. But at that point, maybe just past 11:30 a.m. or excuse me, 11:30 a.m. I'm sleep deprived already. 1:30 a.m. Partly cloudy skies, dry conditions, mid to the upper 30s to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 3 degrees Celsius. Okay, it makes its way to LA. And these are different time zones. So if you're wondering, yes, he goes from Boise to LA, but then the time goes back. That's because they're two separate time zones. So now we're in Pacific time over at LA versus Mountain in Boise. 1:10 a.m. possibly, at least that's what happened last year. There should be some rain showers around, as off the coast of LA, actually, it looks like a very heavy rain system is impacting the area later today. So LA will get soaked in rain on this Easter Eve, Holy Saturday. But by the time the Easter Bunny gets there, it should be much drier, and that heavy rain should be pushed off the coast of LA, and we're just left with some light rain showers, mostly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 40s to about 50 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 9 degrees Celsius. Wrapping around Las Vegas, Nevada, about 5 minutes later, potentially, although much drier, although can't rule out a few raindrops in the mix for sure, but definitely chance to be a little bit clearer outside, so you should see some stars out that way. The Easter Bunny rather should see some stars heading out that way. Low to mid 40s for Fahrenheit, which is roughly 6 degrees Celsius. And Bend, Oregon, which is probably I think it is the closest town that's located in Oregon on the tracker, but technically, which I'll get into in a second, is not the closest town to me. But the weather, even though Bend is like 4 or 5 hours away from me, the weather should be exactly the same where I live that Bend has, so that should be partly cloudy skies, low to mid 30s for Fahrenheit, roughly 0 degrees Celsius. Same in Bend, same where I live here in Eastern Oregon. The time, though, should be roughly the same as well, 1:30 a.m., possibly in Bend, Oregon, making its way over to Portland, Oregon. Here you go, storm tracking. 1:35 a.m. is kind of what happened last year, so we'll see if it's maybe 15 to 30 minutes either direction. We'll see if that changes, but if it's the same, then that should be a pretty darn good estimate. You should see a lot of clear skies, just a few clouds around low to mid 40s for those temperatures in Fahrenheit, roughly 6 degrees Celsius. And here we go. Kennewick, Washington, technically is the closest town on track Easter Bunny CC, even though it's in Washington. So although the weather in Bend is much closer to what it's actually going to be here, it's possible that the estimation on Kennewick is actually closer to what actually happens here. Last year, he got there around 1:40 a.m. Could be similar again this year, give or take. Partly cloudy skies, mid to the upper 40s to about 50. So again, those temperatures where I live could be maybe 15 degrees colder than that, yet maybe the time is slightly more accurate than Bend. We'll see. Roughly 9 degrees Celsius, making his way up to Vancouver, Canada, ETA around 1:45 to 2 a.m. local time. Lots of clear conditions, a few clouds around low to mid 40s for Fahrenheit, roughly 6 degrees Celsius. I think that's pretty similar to Portland. Anchorage, Alaska, definitely will see a white Easter. Snow showers around freezing for temperatures just after 1 a.m. when I'm expecting the Easter Bunny to get there, which again, that's about freezing, so that's around 0 in Celsius. Wrapping up one of his final stops in Honolulu, Hawaii. Honolulu is like 3 hours behind me, so that's why we're going back in time. Wrapping up at around 11:30. Although lots of dry time is expected, with some breaks in that cloud cover allowing to see some stars. Again, if you get caught in a little bit thicker cloud cover, that could produce a few areas of light raindrops. Otherwise, most of you should stay dry. Low to mid 70s for Fahrenheit, which is roughly 23 degrees Celsius. And finally, the final stop, just like I started with the first stop of the Easter Bunny, we are now wrapping up at the final stop, at least what happened last year. The final stop was Adamstown, Pitcairn Islands at around 1:55 local time. Expect that to be around the same this year, give or take. Just 5 minutes, I believe, before he gets back to Easter Island, wrapping up his trip. They're about an hour behind me, so that's roughly 2:55 my time. But if you were on the stream earlier when we were interviewing him, the creator of this tracker, he actually said it's possible the Easter Bunny sticks around a little bit later than expected. So again, these times are subject to change. 15 to 30 minutes for every one of these times is just the best I could do. It's just look what happened last year. So although we expect some changes, it should give you a rough estimate, but we'll continue to track. As you know, he's expected to start preparation at Easter Island in just a few minutes as I'm recording this. That's when the countdown ends, and then he's expected to go ahead and start delivering across the world in just around 3 hours from now. But assuming this is right, around 2 local time, which is roughly around 3 my time. Partly cloudy and windy. We're talking wind gusts, possibly 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Really windy out towards the Pitcairn Islands for the potential last stop. Thunderstorms as well. So keep an eye on that for some of you out that way, out towards the Pitcairn Islands. Although it's scattered, at least it's numerous enough that it's going to be slightly harder to get more drier conditions out that way as some of those previous locations. But if you do, it's going to be really nice with those temperatures into low to mid 70s for Fahrenheit, which is roughly 23 degrees Celsius. Man, we are almost 11 p.m. Pacific time, just 3 minutes away until the Easter Bunny starts making preparations. That is my forecast across the entirety of the world. Basically, to sum it up, not a lot of crazy weather going on. Just like Christmas, slightly milder than usual for sure, but the big things is parts of the world, including the Pitcairn Islands, and possibly his first stop at Kiribati, and possibly even Singapore. That's when you could get into the slightly severe weather, maybe a few thunderstorms out that way. Otherwise, we're going to be seeing more of that rain out towards the southern states of the U.S. and possibly more southwestern England is where a lot of that rain possibly could be. Otherwise, a lot of you just pretty dry for the most part. And yeah, Alaska could definitely is in the realm of possibilities to see a white Christmas. And although most of you won't in Colorado, it's possible a few of you do. There you go. That is your forecast. Stick with us throughout the next, man, how far are we? We still got another 36 hours, I think, until the Easter Bunny starts to wrap up. So stick with us.